Hello there, and welcome to another episode of A Thought in Progress, subtitled I Have Something to Say. I want to talk a little bit about psychosis from an insider perspective. So I think there's a lot of misunderstandings around what psychosis is and isn't, and how it manifests, and what we can do to help an individual who is in the throes, if you will, of psychosis. Um, I've had several psychotic breaks. I'm not bragging. There's nothing to brag about. Um, Unfortunately, they can be fun and illuminating, which is sometimes I think why people don't want to take antipsychotic drugs, and they feel like they're losing something because um, in the middle of psychosis, it feels highly meaningful and what is called ontonormativity. So the general feel of, I've had this psychotic experience and it feels more real than actual reality. And, I don't know, some of you may have taken hallucinogens. It's very similar. I wouldn't know. I've never taken hallucinogens, but I've had psychotic breaks. And I've heard that those two things are somewhat similar. So, given that, what is psychosis? I think uh, many of us who are not actually diagnosed with a psychotic disorder or have experienced psychosis um, in the normal nomenclature and meaning of that word have still had, you know, unrealistic expectations or definitions of reality. And that's very similar to what psychosis is. You could even say that on average, uh, people have mini psychotic breaks all the time. Just not in touch with reality. Moments when we're not in touch with reality. So here, there's the other question: what is reality? Um, and I do want to really emphasize this. Each individual human being has his or her or its whatever own experience of what reality is that is unique to that individual, based on personality, based on belief system, based on culture, based on individual. They're kind of layers of what makes reality reality, um, and then of course, are we ever really in touch with reality, or are our sensory organs functioning correctly? Is what I'm actually experiencing, is that reality, or is it like this knockoff of what my senses tell me reality is? Um, so there's all these philosophical questions, but I want to hit on it like this. I have a reality. I'm in my version of reality, right? Another person has their version of reality. They're both unique subsets of reality, right? So how do we bridge between realities, my reality and someone else's reality? And the answer is communication, language, culture. Um, so it's not a matter of, is a person suffering from a psychotic break? It's a matter of, are they sharing reality with other individuals? Um, so that kind of speaks to, okay, so how do I help someone who's having a psychotic break, or has had psychotic breaks in the past, or is having trouble with, their their grasp of reality? And the answer really is socialization, radical self and other acceptance, and connection, communication, um, and I would say, as I said to a friend of mine the other night, you really want to encourage people in general to focus on the shared realities. Um, you know, why do you think small talks exist? Why do you think we talk about the weather when we don't know what else to talk about? Because we're establishing what reality is for that interaction, for that moment between individuals. We're validating each other's realities. We're communicating in ways that, you know, like I said, establish what reality can be in that moment. Um, and there are different social scripts that some people may not be able to follow or have trouble fitting in, and all this other stuff. And that's kind of endemic of what psychosis can be, or what can lead to psychosis, right? When we isolate, when we uh, think too much about our own personal, unique version of reality, we get in a space where um, we're not sharing anymore. We're not sharing reality anymore with other individuals, and that's kind of the bedrock of what leads to psychosis. Um, so, um, I've had, like I said, I've had psychotic breaks. Most of them took place in my college years. I would say 10 to 20, 10, between the span of 10 years ago to 20 years ago, which is really when I was in my early 20s up until about, I guess, age 30 or so. Um, I had a real hard time connecting with other people, and sharing my reality in meaningful ways. And so I kind of got off the jumped off the deep end into my own version of what reality could be. And we're talking about delusions and hallucinations and all that. And I still struggle a little bit with it, but if you haven't watched my other video on the two realms, I would suggest that as additional viewing material to really get a handle on what it is. And I'll go over that briefly here. Um, there's there's shared reality is one realm, and then the individual reality of the unique individual is the other part of the realm. So you can also talk about, social experience versus personal experience, and the boundaries and the borders between those things. Um, which actually, I want to talk a little bit about culture, a little more about culture in the world setting. Um, and this kind of came to me the other night, this line of thinking where we're talking about, borders, and we're talking about, you know, building walls along our borders. And it really speaks to this fear that we're having in this country of America, and probably around the world, as globalization occurs more and more. And um, these two topics, psychosis and globalization, and different things like that, really aren't that far apart if you think about it. Um, it's almost like, with what happened at the Capitol in January. And um, you can almost call that uh, a mass psychotic break. And what you have with all the conspiracy, and that brings me to my next point, the conspiracy theories. And that is really what I want to hit on. There's a term in the logic realm, and it's called elegance. So I want to talk about the elegance of psychosis. And I'll bear with me as I dovetail and bring all this back together at the end. Um, Elegance means um, you have an idea and it's multi-act, right? And what I mean by that is it can explain things in several different realms. The problem with it, and that's what psychosis does. That's why psychosis accommodates any new material coming in, even the kind that's supposed to refute it, which is what therapists and mental health professionals try and do. They try and refute it, which is the wrong approach, like I said. But all that information goes in, even the refutations, or whatever you want to call them, go into that mindset. That's that elegant psychotic mindset. And psychosis is so durable and versatile that it accommodates it, and it may shift a little bit, but it's going to keep its hold on the individual most of the time. And that's scary. It is scary. I'm not lying. I'm not trying to make, put candy coating on this. It's a scary proposition. What happens with psychosis? Now, unfortunately, and we're talking, talking about conspiracy theories, similar to psychosis, probably about the same. Only conspiracy theories are like mass. How do I say it? Um, a number of people in the same psychotic break, right? And then we get breaches from that into reality, which is really what happened in January at the Capitol, and what is happening as people look at certain people as messianic figures, and it just baffles my mind. But at the same time, I'm like, you know what? If you look at it, in the middle of the pandemic, we've got people isolating. As I said, the formula for psychosis on a mass scale is there, and it's happening. Um, Unfortunately. So the elegance of psychosis. Now there's the other side of that is something is some idea that I've thought up have enough convergence. And convergence is when it can be validated by looking at it in many different ways, right? So what I'm seeing validates what I'm hearing. What I'm hearing validates what I'm smelling, that sort of thing. And that goes into the sensory thing, and that's kind of what makes up ideas. And then the ideas get tested, or, or their elegance gets tested by different events, and the aptness or not is what um, keeps them from being completely thrown out. And that's where the problem with psychosis and conspiracy theory is the elegance part. Um, Now, you can look at the convergence part and say, well, maybe the person is hallucinating and they saw something, so that builds on the convergence part. The problem is the convergence needs to be based on actual concrete realities and shared realities. So that's really the place to kind of attack it, right? Because if you try and refute it from the side where you're saying, well, you know, this isn't true because this, and this, it's not going to work out. So you might say that one psychotic, kind of a psychotic idea is people can read my mind, I can broadcast my thoughts, stuff like that, right? And, unfortunately, with a person suffering from or living with a mental health diagnosis, and sometimes suffering, let's be real, um, they they have moments where hallucinations can build up delusions. Hallucinations can build into ideas that become multi-apt. Hallucinations, um, really. And what is hallucination? I don't. It's just the mind kind of attacking itself like an allergy or something. And just random neurons firing. And, a lot of that's from stress and trauma and things, and the brain's wired in ways that it shouldn't, and it experiences different realities than it should. And that's all for another time when I have more time to think in that line of thinking. But I do want to, really impress upon the viewer that um, everyone has many, mini psychotic breaks once in a while. Whenever you're not in line with actual reality and you have to stop and say, oh, well, this is what really happened. Before that was kind of a mini psychosis. And I'm trying to normalize this and take away some stigma, you know? And I realize this video is running long, but please bear with me because this is very important. Um, let's normalize this as much as we can. Let's accept each other as much as we can. Let's share reality as much as we can. And the reason people don't share reality is because it makes them very vulnerable. Which is why We need to find ways to lubricate social settings so that more people feel comfortable and more people don't feel threatened or um, out of place. So that's what I would say to do. Just be aware that, you know, whatever version of reality that your unique mind is creating for you or cultivating meaning within that reality, right? Um, Try to bridge as much as you can with other minds through communication, language, and culture. And yeah, I mean, the psychotic experience, um, lots of times it takes a spiritual bent. Lots of times it's very enjoyable. Lots of times it's very meaningful. And that's why sometimes people don't come back from it. And um, so I would say, we really do need to create meaning that can be shared. Um, and sharing is healing. So buy my books, jasontapscott.com, amazon.com, Kindle ebooks. I'm working on the third installment. It's almost done. I hope to have that uploaded and in paperback form by the summertime. And please check it out. The ebooks are 99 cents each, and the third installment is on its way. Thank you and have a good night.